Hello, folks. I am Alan for today's news. I will be reading and speaking about world news, interesting news to keep you entertained, and news to keep you informed. First thing I got for you here is from the Washington Post. Biden announces he is running for re-election in 2024. Well, I can tell you, he's just wasting his time.
President Biden officially announced his bid for re-election Tuesday morning, saying in a solemn launch video that he wants to finish the job he started when the country was racked by a deadly pandemic, a reeling economy, and a teetering democracy. Claiming that his presidency has pulled the country back from the brink on all those fronts, Biden underlined his ambition to turn what he had once pitched as a transitional presidency into something far more transformational. The question we are facing is whether in the years ahead we have more freedom or less freedom, more rights or fewer, Biden said in the video. I know what I want the answer to be. This is not a time to be complacent. That's why I'm running for re-election. For Biden, 80, the announcement marks a pivotal moment in a political career that has spanned a half-century. The decision may defy the wishes of some Democratic voters clamoring for a different standard-bearer, one who is younger, more progressive and more reflective of the party's diversity, while also underscoring Biden's strength among party leaders, including those who believe he has the best chance of defeating Donald Trump or another Republican.
No, he don't have no chance at all. And we will get less freedom, less rights. You know, he's taking away our freedom and rights. Is what he's doing. Let's go to the next one. There's one here. This from the Washington Post. Harry Belafonte, barrier, smashing entertainer, and activist dies at 96.
Harry Belafonte, the singer whose dynamic a cappella shout of Deo, from the Banana Boat song and other music from world folk traditions propelled him to international stardom, and who used his entertainment fortune to help bankroll the civil rights movement at home and human rights causes worldwide, died April 25 at his home in Manhattan. He was 96. The cause was congestive heart failure, said his spokesman Ken Sunshine. Mr. Belafonte was born to Jamaican immigrants, grew up in poverty in Depression-era Harlem and became a major black crossover success in popular music. He went on to smash a series of barriers during 5 decades as a movie, TV, and stage star. His artistic and humanitarian work frequently overlapped, reflecting his belief that the role of art isn't just to show life as it is but to show life as it should be.
And you can read the rest of this in my description box if you like. I'm going to the next one here. This from Reuters. Russia's war on Ukraine latest. Russia deploys new ballot tank.
Reuters, Russia has begun using its new T-14 Armata battle tanks to fire on Ukrainian positions, but they have not yet participated in direct assault operations, the RIA state news agency reported on Tuesday, quoting a source close to the matter. Diplomacy. Asterisk risks of a direct military confrontation between the two nuclear powers, Russia and the United States, are steadily growing, the TASS news agency quoted a senior Russian diplomat as saying. Asterisk Russia may retreat from the moratorium on the deployment of intermediate and shorter-range missiles due to the actions of the United States, TASS quoted a senior Russian diplomat as saying. Asterisk UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres told a meeting chaired by Russia's foreign minister that the invasion of Ukraine is causing massive suffering and devastation, while Moscow warned global risks were possibly worse than during the Cold War. Asterisk security will be a key issue at a wind energy summit of 7 countries surrounding the North Sea, Belgium said. Dutch intelligence agencies have accused Russia of planning sabotage to offshore turbines. Russia rejects that. Asterisk EU Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell expressed confidence that the bloc would finalize a plan within days to buy ammunition for Ukraine. China seeks to end sovereignty row. China respects the status of former Soviet member states as sovereign nations, its foreign ministry said, distancing itself from comments by its envoy to France that triggered uproar. Fight.
Okay, now you can read the rest of this in my description box if you like. There's more to read. Let me go on to the next one here. This one here is from the National Review. Supreme Court deals blow to oil companies being sued for climate change.
The Supreme Court declined to hear appeals by major oil companies to move climate change lawsuits against them from state to federal courts, with the latter being far more skeptical of such suits. Oil companies such as Chevron Corporation and Shell Corporation are facing a wave of public nuisance lawsuits across the country alleging varied environmental harms from the emissions of greenhouse gases. Some of the plaintiffs include the state of Rhode Island, the city of Baltimore, and Boulder County, Colorado. The state and local plaintiffs were backed by the Biden administration in seeking to keep the lawsuits in state courts, a reversal from the Trump administration's position. The state-level litigation represents a major threat to the oil industry and has been likened to state litigation filed against tobacco companies in the 1990s and more recent cases against pharmaceutical companies accused of fueling the opioid epidemic. An example of such a case is Baltimore's 2018 suit filed in Maryland State Court, in which the city said it has suffered climate change-related injuries from rising sea levels and extreme weather. The city is seeking to recover monetary damages from companies who have allegedly contributed to climate change and misled the public.
Okay, you can read the rest of this in my description box if you like. They get sued and stuff. They probably raise gas prices to help pay, for that. And with something else on here too, I forgot what it was now. Anyway, this is all Biden's doing, Biden is killing this country. Let's go to the next one. This one here is from Business Insider. UK intel says Russia is giving Ukrainians in occupied towns a choice. Get Russian passports or get deported and have their property seized. Sounds like our government.
Russian authorities are forcing Ukrainian citizens in occupied areas to get Russian passports. If residents refuse, they will be deported and have their property seized, UK intel said. The UK Ministry of Defence said Putin's forces are trying to force Russian culture on occupied Ukrainian territories. For a 14 photos in gallery here I am with my, at this point, to be the fiancée and her mom and little. See more. In occupied towns, Russian authorities are giving Ukrainian civilians a choice: get a Russian passport or leave. According to an update from the UK Ministry of Defence, Russia is forcing Ukrainian citizens to accept Russian Federation passports. In some areas of the Kherson region in southeast Ukraine, residents have been warned that those who have not accepted a Russian passport by June 1, 2023 will be deported and their property seized, the ministry said. The ministry added that making Ukrainians register with Russian passports is a tool in the Russification of the occupied areas, meaning the forced assimilation of Ukrainians into Russian culture. Russia previously used passports to integrate Ukrainians in Donetsk and Luhansk before the February 2022 invasion, the intel said. Russian forces on the front lines of the war are preparing for Ukraine's long-anticipated counteroffensive, which Kyiv hopes will break the stalemate of the current state of the war and retake some key areas in the country's east.
Okay, that's all I got on that one there. What he wants to do, he wants to make these people his and to force them to fight Ukraine. That's his plan. I'm pretty sure of it. Let me go to the next one here. This is from the Associated Press. Michigan official gets house arrest for 2020 ballot sabotage. Let's see what this is about.
Flint Township, Michigan, AP. a local official in Michigan accused of breaking a seal on a ballot box in her own election to ensure that votes couldn't be recounted, was sentenced Monday to 6 months of house arrest. Kathy Funk, a Democrat, must wear an electronic monitor and also write a public apology for her actions in 2020 as the Flint Township clerk. In January, Funk pleaded no contest to misconduct in office. A no contest plea is not an admission of guilt but is used as such at sentencing. Funk had won the Democratic nomination by just 79 votes out of about 5,300. A recount was not conducted, and she subsequently won the general election that fall. Investigators say she sabotaged the ballot box after the primary election, an act that would make those ballots ineligible for a recount.
Okay, see, she's a Democrat. You know, the Democrats, if you're a Democrat, I'm sorry, but let me go to the next one. Okay, this one here is from the Wall Street Journal. Sliding diesel prices signal warning for U.S. economy.
A nationwide freight slowdown has helped cut U.S. diesel prices by half from last year's record, raising concerns that parts of the world's largest economy have begun to slow. Wholesale diesel recently fell to $2.65 a gallon in New York Harbor, down from $5.34 last May, after Russia's invasion of Ukraine sent commodity markets haywire and turned prices advertised at gas stations into street-level reminders of inflation's 40-year highs. Record diesel costs made it more expensive to operate excavators at construction sites, run machinery on farms, and haul goods from ports, rail yards, or factory floors. Prices began falling months ago, when a warm winter cut demand for heating fuel and a reshuffling of global oil trade alongside Russia's war left a glut of diesel supplies on the market. Now, with the Federal Reserve trying to cool business activity by raising interest rates, waning manufacturing output and trade have also dented U.S. appetite for the fuel. The darkening industrial outlook, which contrasts with low unemployment and a robust service sector, has pulled benchmark diesel futures down nearly 25% this year, to $2.53 a gallon. Federal record keepers peg the year-over-year hit to domestic demand at 8.4%. The declines are weighing on crude oil, even as China hoovers up more petroleum, and pushing down margins for refiners such as Valero Energy Corporation, Marathon Petroleum Corporation, and Phillips 66 Company. The S&P 500 energy sector has slid 1.3% in 2023, after being one of the stock market's few winners last year. Diesel demand is being pressured from every side, said Eric Lee, a commodities strategist at Citi. Debbie Desiderato survived as an independent trucker when diesel prices hit records in 2008, so she wasn't fazed when they reached record highs last year. But plunging costs in recent months haven't provided much relief. Instead, the Virginia-based driver said the rates she can charge for hauling cargo from dog food to pillows have in some cases fallen faster than fuel. Low demand for freight has meant fewer diesel-hungry semi-trailers on the road, Ms. Desiderato said, pushing some fellow truckers to sell their vehicles.
Okay, and you can read the rest of this in my description box. This is Biden doing too. Anyway, this is the next one here is from Bazinga. U.S. should tell Kim Jong that Washington will use nuclear weapons without hesitation. Trump-era National Security Chief.
Former U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton on Tuesday said Washington should redeploy tactical nuclear weapons to the Korean Peninsula to make its deterrence against Kim Jong-un credible. What happened, Bolton, at a security conference in Seoul, said Washington should make it clear to Kim or his successor that the U.S. and South Korea would not hesitate to use nuclear weapons if needed, reported Yonhap news agency. I think the United States should redeploy tactical nuclear weapons on the peninsula, and they ought to be made very clear to Kim Jong-un and whatever relative is looking to succeed him in North Korea, that we in the government of South Korea will use tactical nuclear weapons without hesitation, Bolton said.
And there's more to read. Well, there ain't that much more. Let's finish this off here.
That's how you make deterrence credible, Bolton said while stressing that such a measure would buy time for Seoul to think long and hard about whether it wants its own separate nuclear capability. Bolton's comments came in response to an increasing sentiment among South Koreans for Seoul to develop its own nuclear arsenal. Why it matters. Bolton is known to have been instrumental in organizing 2 meetings between the U.S. and North Korea under Donald Trump's presidency. The security advisor is known to have voiced significant concerns about Pyongyang's previous statements regarding nuclear disarmament.
And that's all I got on that one there. Link will still be in my description box. Let's go to the next one. It's one here from Markets Insider. Central banks are leading a revolt against the U.S. dollar and shifting to gold at a record pace, market expert says.
Central banks are turning away from the U.S. dollar and shifting to gold, Ruchir Sharma wrote. Central banks account for a record 33% of monthly global demand for gold, he said in the FT. Thus the oldest and most traditional of assets, gold, is now a vehicle of central bank revolt against the dollar. Full screen. Assurance in the dollar's dominance ignores signs that countries are serious about seeking alternatives, according to Ruchir Sharma. This is illustrated when taking account of recent trends in gold. The safe haven commodity has surged 20% in the last half year. But demand is coming from central banks reducing their dollar holdings, not the usual suspects made up of large and small investors, the chair of Rockefeller International wrote in the Financial Times on Sunday. In fact, central banks account for a record 33% of monthly global demand for gold and are buying more gold than at any time since data began in 1950, he added. This buying boom has helped push the price of gold to near record levels and more than 50% higher than what models based on real interest rates would suggest, said Sharma. Clearly, something new is driving gold prices.
Okay, it says here 9 of the top central banks buying gold are in developing countries like China, Russia, and India. Anyway, let's go to the next one here. This one, I wasn't going to do no Fox News. I slipped. Yeah, I'm going to get rid of that. I even deleted Fox app off my phone too. Okay, here's one here from the New York Post. Biden's backdoor bid to open the door to legalize migrants.
President Biden is right that U.S. democracy is under threat. From him. The latest example, his complete disregard for limits on his executive powers over immigration, in blatant defiance of democratically elected lawmakers. Even the pro-Biden New York Times notes the Prez is using his executive authority as a backdoor to significantly expand the number of legal immigrants entering the U.S. It's his way of dealing with the historic surge of illegal immigration he ignited, simply let in a big chunk legally, even if Congress refuses to okay it. Specifically, Biden has boosted the use of humanitarian parole programs to allow record numbers of migrants to enter and work here. He also ballooned the Temporary Protected Status Program, letting masses of newcomers take refuge in the United States outside the normal process. The humanitarian parole claims are supposed to be decided on a case-by-case basis. In 2021, the Fifth Circuit ruled that Homeland Security cannot parole aliens en masse, and DHS's pretended power to parole aliens while ignoring the limitations Congress imposed is misenforcement, suspension of the Immigration and Nationality Act, or both. Yet Team Biden keeps rubber stamping most applicants under existing programs and has even created new ones for migrants from Venezuela, Cuba, Nicaragua, and Haiti if they have private sponsors. He's letting 360,000 people from those 4 countries gain admission this year alone, more than got immigrant visas in the prior 15 years combined. Customs and Border Protection officers transporting migrants for processing after they crossed the border near El Paso, Texas on April 23, 2023. James Kavam for New York Post. He's also waving in applicants under TPS, with 670,000 from 16 countries now registered for the program or newly eligible since he took office.
And there's more to read if you want to read more about it, not much more. I don't know what to say about him. He's pissing me off. We all should just send him to the Capitol. Send all the migrants to the Capitol. Let him handle them. Let's go to the next one. This from the Daily Mail. Russia is moving closer to nuclear conflict with the U.S., Moscow warns.
Russia is moving closer to nuclear conflict with the U.S., Moscow warns. Russia is moving closer to a nuclear conflict with the United States due to Washington's support for Ukraine, Moscow has warned. Vladimir Yermakov, the Foreign Ministry's head of nuclear nonproliferation, told TASS news agency that Washington is escalating the risks through its conduct with the Kremlin, the latest in a series of threats from top Russian officials. He said risks of a direct military confrontation between the two nuclear powers is steadily growing, as he suggested to the Russian state news agency that Russia may withdraw from an intermediate and shorter-range nuclear missiles treaty. Since the start of Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine 14 months ago, Moscow has issued regular charges against the U.S. and what it calls the collective West for raising the risks of a nuclear war, rhetoric intended to deter Kiev's allies. If the United States continues to follow its current course of confrontation with Russia, with the stakes constantly escalating on the verge of sliding into direct armed conflict, then the fate of START, nuclear arms treaty, may be a foregone conclusion, Yermakov said. The U.S. told Russia in March that it will cease exchanging some data on its nuclear forces following Moscow's refusal to do so, calling it a response to Russia's suspending participation in the New START treaty. The treaty obligated both Russia and the U.S. to commit to regular communications on the status of their nuclear arsenals, allow regular on-site inspections and abide by caps on the number of deployed and non-deployed warheads each would maintain. With a reported 5,977 warheads, Russia has the world's biggest nuclear arsenal, inherited from the Soviet Union, and up until the COVID pandemic was subjected to constant inspections and control from the U.S., which comes in a close second. Suspension of the treaty has led to fears of a nuclear arms race between the world's nuclear-armed superpowers. Yermakov did not provide details of the alleged U.S. confrontational approach in the excerpts from the TASS interview published so far. The most acute threat today is associated with the danger of nuclear escalation as a result of a direct military confrontation between nuclear powers, Yermakov said. And these risks, to the deepest regret, are steadily growing. Moscow and Beijing will assess the West's potential involvement in the global expansion of the U.S. anti-missile system, which clearly undermines strategic stability, he added. Pictured, a BM-21 Grad multiple rocket launcher fires towards Russian positions on the front line near Bakhmut, Donetsk region, on April 23. Read the full story. He said Moscow will evaluate the range of American-made missiles that, according to him, are capable of reaching the Asian-Pacific region. But even now we can say with confidence that the destabilizing U.S. military programs and their allies make our moratorium more and more fragile, both in the Asia-Pacific region and in Europe, Yermakov, pictured, said. Putin's invasion of Ukraine plunged Moscow's relationship with the US and other NATO nations to its lowest level since the Cold War, and has raised fears of a direct conflict between Russia and NATO that could spill over Ukraine's borders. The United States has been Ukraine's biggest backer, committing more than $70 billion to Kiev's aid, $43 billion of which has gone towards its military. Its military aid has included the provision of HIMARS rocket launchers, which were credited with dramatically changing the trajectory of the war, with Ukraine's forces utilizing them in their lightning counteroffensives last summer. Several HIMARS launches have struck deep behind enemy lines, with one attack on what was believed to be a military barracks killing dozens of Russian soldiers on New Year's Eve. Ukraine claimed it had killed around 400 Russian troops in the strike. The US has also pledged to deliver its state-of-the-art M1 Abrams tanks to Ukraine, and said on Friday it would soon start training Kiev's forces to use them in battle. American-made Patriot missiles also arrived in Ukraine last week, and military spokesman Yuri Inat said Sunday on Ukrainian television that some have already gone into service. Russia has accused the US of fighting a proxy war in Ukraine, while Washington has said it is supporting a sovereign nation in its fight against an aggressor. Pictured, a Ukrainian soldier rides in a BMP infantry fighting vehicle near the town of Bakhmut, Donetsk region, on April 22. On Monday, Russian-appointed authorities in Crimea said the military fended off a Ukrainian strike on a main naval base, while an exploding drone was also reportedly found in a forest near Moscow. The attacks came as Ukraine is believed to be preparing for a major counteroffensive. The attack was the latest in a series of attempted strikes on Sevastopol, the main naval base in Crimea that Russia illegally annexed in 2014. Ukrainian authorities didn't immediately comment on Monday's strikes. After previous attacks on Sevastopol and other areas, Ukrainian officials stopped short of openly claiming responsibility but emphasized the country's right to strike any target in response to the Russian aggression. Pictured, U.S. Marines drive an M1 Abrams to take part in an exercise to capture an airfield as part of the Trident Juncture 2018.
Okay, that's it. I got on that one there. Links will still be in the description box. There's one here from the Cool Down. Scientists just discovered an astonishing way to create energy out of thin air. The sky is quite literally the limit. Sounds interesting.
It's a magical time for clean energy production. Methods like wind and solar power are leading the way, but they may soon have competition because, similar to a magician pulling a rabbit out of a hat, scientists in Australia have found a way to pull electricity out of thin air. The magicians in this story are Dr. Rhys Grinter, PhD student Ashley Kropp, and Professor Chris Greening from the Monash University Biomedicine Discovery Institute in Melbourne, Australia. The scientific journal, Nature, published their findings. But this is no children's magic trick. These scientists produced and analyzed a hydrogen-consuming enzyme from a common soil bacterium. The enzyme, called HUC, pulls hydrogen from the atmosphere and converts it into electricity. Finding alternative power sources is crucial as we work to move away from dirty energy. Mining, drilling, and burning dirty energy sources like coal, crude oil, and natural gas create numerous problems for our health and the planet. Burning these dirty energy sources leads to the production of the gases that are the main contributors to overheating our planet, while mining and drilling for those resources leads to water and air pollution that endangers our health and the health of plants and animals. Not to mention, the dangerous extraction methods are detrimental to the health of the people directly involved. Finding a natural source of electricity that is clean and renewable is exciting news and a big step in the direction away from dirty energy and toward a cleaner, cooler planet. Australian researchers extracted the Huck enzyme from a bacterium called Mycobacterium smegmatis. It turns out that many bacteria can utilize hydrogen from the atmosphere as an energy source, even in nutrient-poor environments. We've known for some time that bacteria can use the trace hydrogen in the air as a source of energy to help them grow and survive, including in Antarctic soils, volcanic craters, and the deep ocean, Professor Greening said. But we didn't know how they did this until now. Not only can Huck turn trace amounts of hydrogen into electric currents, but Kropp's work shows that purified Huck can be stored for long periods of time. It is astonishingly stable. It is possible to freeze the enzyme or heat it to 80 degrees Celsius, 176 degrees Fahrenheit, and it retains its power to generate energy, Kropp said. This reflects that this enzyme helps bacteria to survive in the most extreme environments. The magical story of Huck keeps getting better, as the bacteria that produce the enzyme can be grown in large quantities, making it a very sustainable resource, like pulling an endless amount of rabbits out of a hat. While it's early in the research process, this discovery could be a significant breakthrough in clean energy. The next step is producing Huck on a large scale, and at that point, as Dr. Grinter put it, the sky is quite literally the limit for using it to produce clean energy.
And that's all I got on that one there. Link will still be in the description box if you want to go back over it. And this one from Fox 2 News. I guess I'll read this one here. Biden administration is quietly planning for a future where you don't own money.
Under the leadership of President Joe Biden, the White House and the Federal Reserve have started to lay the groundwork for a programmable, trackable, easily manipulated digital currency. It might sound like something from a dystopian science fiction novel, but it's all too real, and it could soon change life in America forever. In March 2022, the Biden administration released a sweeping executive order that directed numerous federal agencies to crack down on digital assets, including on popular cryptocurrencies, as well as to study the potential development of a central bank digital currency, CBDC. A CBDC would not be a digital version of the existing paper-based dollar, but rather an entirely new currency that would exist exclusively in a digital, meaning an electronic, non-physical, form. In September 2022, the White House announced the completion of the CBDC reports. Although the administration did not officially propose a CBDC following the release of the reports, it did announce that it had developed policy objectives for a U.S. CBDC system. Biden also directed the leadership of the National Economic Council, National Security Council, Office of Science and Technology Policy and the Treasury Department to meet regularly with the Federal Reserve to. Since the flurry of action in September, the administration has worked tirelessly and quietly to advance the creation of a CBDC through various working groups, speeches, and coordinated efforts with non-government groups.
Okay, you're going to read the rest of this in my description box. Here's one here. I might add this one here to it. Biden rule, this from Fox News too, damn it. Biden rule will distribute high-risk loans to homeowners with good credit. I think I read something about that before to you.
A Biden administration rule is set to take effect that will force good credit home buyers to pay more for their mortgages to subsidize loans to higher-risk borrowers. The changes do not make sense. Penalizing borrowers with larger down payments and credit scores will not go over well, Ian Wright, a senior loan officer at Bay Equity Home Loans, told The Times. It overcomplicates things for consumers during a process that can already feel overwhelming with the amount of paperwork, jargon, etc. Confusing the borrower is never a good thing. Experts believe that borrowers with a credit score of about 680 would pay around $40 more per month on a $400,000 mortgage under rules from the Federal Housing Finance Agency that go into effect May 1st. Costs that will help subsidize people with lower credit ratings also looking for a mortgage, according to a Washington Times report Tuesday.
Well, that's all I got for you for today. Just say don't get loans, don't get no mortgage, just rent. You know, maybe it'll knock the prices down. Anyway, God, that boy makes me mad. Anyway, this is what I got for you today. Remember, this is Alan for today's news. I will be reading, speaking about world news, interesting news, news to keep you entertained, and news to keep you informed. And I thank you for watching. Until next time.